call myself a plant-based health coach. And, sometimes I just call myself a health coach because in the end, that is what I am. I'm teaching you healthy habits, building in. And just for anyone who's gone vegan, I don't blame you sometimes because of the media and the things that you might hear. This is not about giving anything up. This is about building in more healthy habits, more whole foods, more plants to get you a really, really healthy result. So I can just give background from where I came from. Yeah, maybe I'll do the story thing, and you can ask questions if something's like, clarification.
We love the story thing. Please give me the story thing.
All right, great. So, I mean, my whole thing is I've always been a food lover, and I help people get rid of fatigue, get a healthy weight, never diet again, but eat the most delicious food that fits around their life, their preferences, what they want to do, and get a result. And so, for me, I'll start this at like the age of 15, and I was a bit overweight, and I didn't really care about boys much. And then I started caring a bit more, I started a bit late caring about boys, to be fair. And I wanted to lose a bit of weight. I started running and was like, oh, I'll, run and I'll eat a bit less cake and I'm sure that'll be fine. And that turned into running 7 miles a day. Running just up the street occasionally turned into running 7 miles a day. It turned into really not eating very much at all. It turned into a binge eating disorder. It turned into an obsession. And, this was horrendous and one of the most unhappy places I'd ever been in. And I had this moment when I was 17 years old and was like, this is ridiculous. I was like, there has got to be a way. I can eat the food I love because I love food. Still have cake because I love cake. Be a healthy weight, like whatever that kind of means, like this looks different for everyone. Not be obsessed with food and be constantly like scared of food or constantly thinking about food, and just have like this happy, normal, healthy life. Had no idea. The word normal is awful. I was like, right, no idea what this looks like, no idea what normal is. I'm completely screwed up. And that was what took me on this like nutrition journey of being like, all right, what does the body actually need? What does my body actually need to be full, satisfied, not in starvation, not yo-yo dieting? And I started studying nutrition at that point. And I also became, much more aware in a good way of food. Like, hey, how is this nourishing my body? Like, I'm not going to eat less when I know I'm just going to eat more later because I'm hungry. Like, how do we do this? How do we love ourselves and love our body? So I started studying that like in my own time, and also really going for it with the most delicious flavors, the most delicious food, and being like, no, this is something I'm going to enjoy because this is what life is about. And then sort of cut forward into the like mid-20s. Even though I had a much healthier relationship with food, I was still like working out too much, still not kind of having the balance I needed, had quite bad acne, bloating. And at that point, even though I already had some really healthy habits, understood loads about intuitive eating, balanced eating, I went to India and stopped eating meat because I didn't want to get sick, and discovered how full I could get off lentils and things like that. And I was like, like I need to look more into this stuff. And I really discovered, yes, fine. For me, I turned vegan, right? I saw what was happening to the animals, the planet, and also people's health. And I realized I could completely transform my own health even more. I look like 10 years younger than I did in my 20s kind of thing. Like it's crazy. But I also realized that so many people were put off by this food because it was often bland, boring, not filling. And I was like, okay, so how can I help everyone else eat more of this food in a non-restrictive way that's actually going to help their health, not make them feel guilty or feel like, oh, I have to do this 100%, I have to be vegan, but actually get them a health result, help the planet, and help them eat less animals in a way that's benefiting for everyone. And that was kind of how I came to some of this point.
I guess that the one big question that arises for me, because I do eat meat and I love certain things about my diet, and I'm not saying what's right or wrong, and perhaps we can talk about sort of the benefits and the drawbacks, but do you miss meat, fish, because you're vegan, right? You're not vegetarian, you're vegan, and maybe let's just talk about the distinction around that, because I think a lot of
Yeah.
people say they're vegan, but what is a true vegan first?
Yeah, I mean, this is a really good question. And I think despite I can go over what these labels are, but one of the biggest things I encourage people to do is sometimes chuck the labels out, because I think it can really restrict how people eat. They can go, well, I'm not going to eat that because I'm not X. And it's like, well, if that's good for your health, or you want to have that, like, just kind of have it, and actually sometimes these labels can draw us back. But veganism is actually not about food, or food is just one component. It's an ethical stance of not harming other living beings. So if you are a true vegan, you're also not going to wear leather or go to zoos or things like that. And you are avoiding the exploitation of other living beings to the extent you can. So for instance, if there's an anesthetic you need and it's been tested on an animal, you take the anesthetic. We be sensible. So that's being vegan. Being plant-based just means not having animal products in your diet. So not having meat, fish, dairy, eggs, honey. Yes, people have slight variations on some of that, and that's totally fine, because that's the sort of detail that ends up separating us a bit, as opposed to looking at the whole. But the approach I come from is, let's get more of these whole foods and plants. And I can go through like why you will want to do that, no matter whether you're eating meat or not. Why do you want to get more of these foods into your diet? That's the bit that's really going to benefit everyone's health, by doing that and maybe rebalancing some of what they might be eating, as opposed to, we need to give this up, we need to give that up.
Before getting on to that, do you miss
Oh,
meat? Do you miss fish?
Sorry, you did ask me that. I loved the taste of meat and fish. I didn't stop eating them because I didn't like the taste at all. So I don't miss them at all, but that is because I eat really incredible food. And that is because I can replicate the textures of that. And I do this with whole foods, by the way. So I know that question could be coming. We can talk about that, about processed food. And I know sometimes that becomes a thing in the media. Oh, well, this vegan processed food. Let's lean into that and address that. I think that's really important.